I love that. I'm ready to, is there a dance party? Oh, that's tomorrow night. Okay. So welcome back. We all heard in Todd's keynote this morning how for all of us here at Pendo, creating better experiences for all users is our North Star, and how we firmly believe that Pendo should be on all of your applications and websites, and how AI is just going to make us better and not just add more. And I see this in my own team's work. Yes, believe it or not, the HR team, the Pendo people team are huge advocates for reducing friction and saving time in our own experiences and processes via the use of Pendo for employees on our employee-facing third-party applications. For example, we just opened our office in Munich. You might have heard about that. Shout out to my German friends who just joined us. We used Pendo AI to quickly localize new hire workday guides into German in an instant, streamlining compliance efforts that would have taken days across multiple teams. This efficient process demonstrates that you can use Pendo in global scaling or in such sexy work like adherence to multinational regulatory compliance. I mean, you know, who does not want to do that? Or even in making our onboarding experience for our new Pendozers better and more seamless. And the use of Pendo AI has felt and will continue to feel really transformational for my team. So on that note, I want to talk about, in the closing keynote, this is one of the most dynamic voices today on how we can all unleash the power of AI throughout our personal lives and at work. I'm thrilled to introduce Ethan Mollick, distinguished scholar and assistant professor at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, where he studies the effects of artificial intelligence on education, on work, and entrepreneurship. With dynamic and interactive elements integrated into this presentation, Ethan is going to take us on an exploration of the boundless opportunities and incredible possibilities in this era of an AI revolution. And after his session, we're going to bring back out Pendo's Chief Product Officer and my dear friend, Trisha Price, for a chance to go deeper with Ethan on AI and product management. And then I'll be back to send you off to our official welcome reception just outside. So please join me in welcoming Ethan Mollick to the stage.
Hello, everybody. I am so glad to be here with all of you and standing behind a laptop, so this feels very professorial. Great to see you all here. I'm really excited to be having a chance to talk to you. And that was a really nice introduction. So it makes me feel a little bit bad that I'm going to start by reintroducing myself. So here is me again. Let's see what I have to say. Oh, can we get sound, people? Sound? OK, let's see if we get sound. If we don't get sound, I'll skip this part. Any luck?
This is a completely fake video of me. The AI used 30 seconds of me talking to a webcam and 30 seconds of my voice. And now I have an avatar that I can make say anything. Don't trust your own eyes. Questo è un mio video completamente falso. L'intelligenza artificiale ha utilizzato 30 ये मेरा पूरी तरह से फर्जी वीडियो है. AI ने वेबकैम पर मेरी बातचीत के 30 सेकंड और मेरी आवाज़ के 30 सेकंड का उपयोग किया.
So as somebody who got a solid C in college Spanish, this is very gratifying. Learning a language turned out to be a really good idea. Ha ha, all right. But no, in all seriousness, everything you're seeing here, right, everything AI generated, now we're down to 5 seconds of voice, 5 seconds of video do the same thing. It's not going to be a major theme of this talk, but you can't trust anything you see ever again, just as a side note. You should probably turn off voice recognition on any apps that you have. But this is just kind of an intro to where we are. And just to give you my 3 kind of principles I think about with AI, the first is undetectable. So you literally can't detect it. This is a big deal at schools. The latest survey, 70% of undergrads and 70% of K-12 students are all using AI to do homework. We can't tell if you have kids and anyone says their AI detector said they're using AI. None of those detectors actually work. They all have high false positive rates. We're in a world where we can never tell what's AI created and what isn't. Anything since 2022 will be contaminated with AI content. That's just how it is. And it's interesting things for legal discovery, for doing research, but we have AI content mixed with our world that's never going to change at this point. The second really interesting thing about the state of AI right now is it's ubiquitous. So normally, when I go talk to like the Department of Defense or the NSA, or I go talk to Goldman Sachs, they have the latest and coolest tools before anyone else does because they have a lot of money and they spend a lot of money in technology. That isn't the case, though, with AI. The most advanced models, like GPT-4o, are available for free to everybody in 169 countries around the world. So every kid in Mozambique has access to as good an AI tool as they have at the NSA or Goldman Sachs. Actually, significantly better because both Goldman Sachs and the NSA won't let you use their GPT-4o. So everyone's just using it on their phones, obviously, and taking pictures of things. But we're not used to a technology that's ubiquitous, right? Everything I'm showing you, all the capabilities we'll talk about, are things that are available all around the world to everybody right now. That's an unusual place to be. And finally, transformative. Hope to convince you over the course of this short 30 minutes, this is the big one, if you don't already think it is. But I think it's also important to know something else. Like, I talk to OpenAI once a week and Anthropic once a week and all these companies, Google, and I talk to all of them. I don't take money from any of them, but I talk to all of them. The thing that I think people don't realize is they don't know what's going on either. Like, they're just releasing models, right? They don't actually know what they're good for until they release them. In fact, they don't come with release notes, right? Product Management 101. They don't come with it because, and I asked them, and they're like, well, we don't know what it does. We hope you'll tell us. So I think we're used to a world where you can hire a consulting company that will tell you how to use these things, and McKinsey will come in and nobody knows anything, right? How does this work for product management? We'll figure it out together, right? How does it work for customer analytics? Nobody knows. So this is a really interesting place where we're both exploring what's happening, but also figuring it out together as we go along. And that's important to do because we are in a weird world. Though actually, starting 20 months ago with the release of ChatGPT 3.5, the original version of ChatGPT, things got very weird. These are the test scores of GPT 3.5, which is the free version everyone had access to early on. And when I say that it got 65%, on the GRE qualitative, an exam you need to get into the PhD program, I don't mean that it got 65% of test questions right. I mean that 65% of human test takers taking the test. And then GPT-4 came along a couple months later and basically maxes out everything else, right? And now we have 5 different AI models that all score over 90% on any AP college exam that you give it, any SAT test, the bar, whatever you throw at these things, they pass. Right. And that's like a weird place to be. In academia, we're just starting to think about what this means. But I know you guys are in the world of work, and you might be thinking, okay, Ethan, you're a professor. Of course, you care about test scores. What does this mean for the real world? So that's something actually I've been doing a lot of active research in. One of the experiments we did was we went to Boston Consulting Group, with the elite consulting company, and we did an experiment. They gave us 8% of their global workforce, my colleagues at MIT, Harvard, and University of Warwick. We did an experiment where we created 18 realistic business tasks. These are actually the tasks they use for actual recruiting and promotion, analysis tasks, product development tasks, innovation tasks, creativity tasks, managerial tasks. And then we gave some people access to GPT-4, plain vanilla GPT-4, the same thing every kid in Mozambique has access to, and some of them did not get access. What we found is the people given access without any training, any specialized tools, had an immediate 40% improvement in the quality of their work, 26% faster, 12.5% more work done. These numbers are pretty common at this point. A new paper this month came out showing that for coders who got access to GitHub Copilot, the first coding tool that was widely available, powered by GPT 3.5, so again, kind of obsolete right now, 25% improvement in the speed of their work. So these are kind of common numbers at this point. But to put this in context, when steam power was put into a factory in the early 1800s, it improved performance by 18 to 22%. So these are really big numbers, like historically large numbers that we're not 100% sure what to do with at this stage. But there was another finding that was also kind of interesting out of this, which was if you're in the bottom half of the performance distribution, again, all really smart people at BCG, you had a 43% improvement in performance. If you're in the top half, you had a 17%. So bottom performers got a bigger boost than top performers. It's actually a little weirder and worse than that, kind of more unsettling than that. We measured something called retainment, which is how much of the AI's answer you ultimately turned in as your own. For 80% of BCG consultants, the only way to mess up was for them to add any of their own insights or thoughts into GPT-4's answer. As long as they turned in the answer on their own, they did great, right? So it's basically working at the 80th percentile of consultants out of the box. And we find this across field after field. On the left, this is legal contract drafting. For law students at the University of Michigan who were either given or not given access to GPT-4, the blue grade curve, which is the grade distribution for students who weren't given access, the orange is students who were given access. There's no longer any bad lawyers, right? Just removes the bottom part of the curve. On the right is doctors using Amy, which is a version of Gemini tuned for medicine from Google. And you can see here on the right, the yellow line are doctors, the diagnostic success rate of doctors using Amy. The green line is the diagnostic success rate of doctors using Google search. Blue is not using either. Make sure your doctors are at least Googling. They don't want to talk much about this, but the red line is the success rate of Amy without any doctors involved. Doctors lowered the accuracy level by adding their own thoughts and ideas. On top of this like performance stuff, AI does stuff you wouldn't expect it to do. Like, for example, creativity, right? So on the left-hand side chart, this is a bunch of different models, compared to humans in creativity. And you can see GPT-4 is rated as more creative than the average human on almost every test. On the right is some results from my colleagues at Wharton that found something really interesting. They have a very famous innovation class. People raised hundreds of millions of startup money from it. And they had the students of the class generate 200 ideas. They had GPT-4 generate 200 ideas. They had outside judges judge the idea by willingness to pay. The top 40 ideas, of the top 40, 35 came from the AI, only 5 from the humans in the room, right, out of the box. And like this stuff does creative stuff you wouldn't expect, right? Let's see if I can get this to work properly. Here we go. All right, there we go. So we're in a world where you can do really interesting, weird things all together. And then on top of this, another product management thing is persuasion. So Sam Altman wrote a post a year ago. He's very good at predicting the problems of AI, but not always the solutions, where he said that he thought AI would be hyper-persuasive before it was hyper-intelligent. That turns out to be true. If you get into a debate with the AI versus an average person, you're 81.7% more likely to change your view to the AI's view than the average person's view. And the only thing we've ever seen that robustly lowers conspiracy theory beliefs over the course of 3 months is getting to debate with the AI. Just 3 rounds of discussion with the AI, and people believe the conspiracy theory less 3 months later. It's almost impossible to change people's minds about this. The AI does. Now, on one hand, that's great. Conspiracy theory beliefs are bad. On the other, that's a little ominous that we can change people's belief with just a short conversation using logic. So hyper-persuasive already seems to be happening. Don't worry, I'm almost done with charts, then we'll do some stuff, but a couple more that are important. These are a bunch of data on who gets impacted by AI work. This is overlap with AI. Doesn't mean that your job's replaced, it means your job's overlapped. And we find a really strong relationship across every one of these studies, which is the more creative your job is, the more highly paid you are, the more education your job requires, the more it overlaps with AI. Again, not replacement, but overlap. I think about this a lot because out of the 1,016 jobs on the list, business school professor is number 22. So, you know, on one hand, this is okay. Like, I like talking to you. I like doing research. I like writing books. I don't like grading homework. So, like, if the AI grades the homework, is that good or bad? But it will certainly change our jobs. But in case you want to know, the 4 least affected jobs, just in case you needed them for reference: professional athlete and professional dancer. So it's not too late for us. Then roofer and ditch digging. Although I actually spoke to our roofer, an Amish roofer, and he's using AI to send out proposals. So if we've lost the Amish, I don't know. So ditch digging's still okay, though. Okay, one last chart, and then we're going to dive into a few use cases. It's important to know what a frontier model is. So there are many AI models out there right now, but there's something called the scaling law in AI. And the scaling law says that the bigger your AI model, which also means the more data that goes into it, the more chips you need, the more energy you need, the more expensive it is. Only a few companies in the world can train these. The more successful it is at almost everything. So even though GPT-4 was not trained in medicine, it beats all the specialized medical AIs that were developed. Bloomberg spent about $10 million building Bloomberg GPT, which had 51% of all of Bloomberg's really good data in it. And it was supposed to predict stock market sentiment, and it did a really good job predicting stock market sentiment, but until they compared it to GPT-4, and GPT-4 just beat it in everything because it's a 100 times larger model. So the larger your model, the better. So if you want to use this for kind of inspiration or to work with, you want the largest possible model. There's now 5 frontier models out there: GPT-4o, Gemini from Google, Claude from Anthropic, Llama, which is an open model, open weights model from Meta, and the weird dark horse candidate, which is Grok from Elon Musk. And the weird thing is that they are scaling faster than anyone else, so keep your eye on that model. It's an interesting one. Okay, so that's a lot of talking about these things. Let me show you some stuff. Let's just do a few things here. Hopefully we'll make the screen large enough here that I can that you guys can see it. And I'll try and type while turning my head a little bit. OK, I'll make it one stage larger. Oh, there it is. You made it larger for me. OK, so let's just do something. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship, so let's just say, one of you name one of your companies that you're at. Give me a company name. Which one? OK, I couldn't hear it, so I'm going to just make something up. All right. I'm going to go with my bank. I used to work at Wells Fargo. Now I am getting my MBA at Wharton. Give me 10 business, typing while turning your head on a stage with thousands of people watching you is fun. 10 business ideas. OK. So it's going to give us business ideas, and now it's going to, think of it, it has to know what an MBA is, it has to know what Wharton is, it has to know what Wells Fargo is, and it can do a pretty good job now of kind of laying this out. Someone yell out a business idea that we want to pursue. Let's give me a number. It'll happily do 30 of these. 4, I heard 4. Thank you for speaking clearly. Okay. If as a professor, right, what do people come to Wharton for? It's so that I can tell them the answer to tell me how I do 4. Like that's my job, right? Is like teaching people that. People pay 6 figures to come to Wharton for this. And it does a pretty good job of telling me how to do 4. Not as good as Wharton. Please keep coming and sending your kids and paying 6 figures. But a pretty good job on this. And the great thing is it's fractal, right? So I can do like, you said to do market research, write an email from me to a potential customer asking for an interview. So that I teach people how to do this, because talking to customers is important, and who knew? And so now it's going to write a nice little email from us to a customer. And it's pretty good. It's leaving a lot of blanks. Actually, there's a problem with it. I'm really sorry. This is terribly unrealistic. Let me fix this. I'm so sorry. This is not like my students at all. Mention Wharton a lot more. OK. We should have nailed it now. OK, here we go. Great. It's laying it on thick. This is what I like to see, right? By the way, this is how you work with the AI. You just talk to it, right? Like I'm not doing anything complicated on prompt engineering for this. And it's laying it on much thicker. And we can actually go one step further, right? Do it as a rhyming poem. Add lots of emoji. I don't teach this, by the way. But maybe I should. OK, so by the way, anyone read a language other than English out there? Anyone? Language other than English? Spanish, OK. Make it easy. All right. Do it in Spanish. Keep the rhymes. OK. You have to let me know. I got a C in Spanish, so I can't help you with this. You'll have to let me know if it's any good or not. Answer? All right, good. OK, the one person. A lot of people said they knew Spanish. Only one person said it was good. OK, so the idea is that I just want to point out, like, not only is it, like, we think about the AI as not being necessarily creative, but like, no one's ever asked for a rhyming poem in Spanish for a Wharton student who used to work at Wells Fargo, pitching an idea to talk to a, like, this is effectively unique, right? Even if it's recombination. And then this stuff gets more interesting, right? We can do all kinds of other stuff with this that used to be hard to do. For example, I could say, look up trendy, let's say, sneaker companies. Tell me what their strengths and weaknesses are, and then create an on-trend design that will beat them, and show me a photo shoot of it, right? So, by the way, you'll notice it's doing a web search. So one of the things you probably know about AI is it hallucinates. It makes stuff up all the time, right? But when the models get larger, they hallucinate less. And then when you can do things like connect to the internet, it hallucinates even less than that. So like, there's still going to be made up stuff, but it's going to be less so. So we'll see here as it kind of comes together here. And we'll get into some more product-y pieces in a second here. This is always good. I'm realizing I don't know all the brands today, so I'm feeling, I assume these are real. So now it's creating a design for us. Again, something we would teach people in a general basis. Let's see how it comes up with here. But the idea that I can come up with these, or an infinite number of these on demand, I think is super interesting. Let's see what it comes up with. Oh, it's going to colorways, and it's going to do a mock-up photo shoot. So the fact that I can give one command and get all this stuff kind of happening all at once, I think is super interesting. Let's see how the photo looks. Then we'll get into even more interesting stuff in a moment here. It's very suspenseful. I always like, oh, there we go. So here, 100%. Oh, it actually included, like, that's 100% AI generated from doing the research, doing the whole thing end to end, right? The nature of work is going to change somewhat. And I mean, this gets even more interesting, right? Because these systems can do all kinds of interesting things with data, too. So I can do things like throw in, here, let me actually pull one up. Here we are. Let me throw in some financial data. And I could say something like, mock up, or actually, why don't we just say, create an interactive dashboard using this reverse income statement. I'm misspelling things, but it'll be OK, to explore key business assumptions. Right. And so we'll get this kind of thing built up for us here, right? And it's actually, I can't code in React, I hate to say, or Python. This is embarrassing to admit in front of all of you here. But I do a few hundred Python and React programs a week, because why not bother? So I just threw in a CSV file with financial data, and I said, mock this up. Again, I teach entrepreneurship, innovation, like the idea that you can get a mock-up and actually get interviewed about it. We'll see if it actually works or not in a moment. If not, it'll probably fix it itself. So it's creating a dashboard for us. And let's see. OK, great. So now I've got a dashboard that I can adjust the numbers for and get different changes in the financial data. And actually, let's make it more sophisticated. Add the ability to do Monte Carlo simulations. And we'll have it do that. I'll throw that together. While we have that, while it's building a whole Monte Carlo simulation thing for us, let's go back to ChatGPT for a second. I want to show you another cool example. These systems have vision, too, so they can actually see things about the world, which gives them some really interesting characteristics. So I can throw in a picture of, say, someone wearing a dress and say, tell me how to improve the fit of this dress. And it sees things kind of the way people do. So I can give it a picture, and it will actually look at it and hopefully give us good feedback. We'll find out in a second, or if it's stalling out today. Here we go. So it seems like it can actually give us information and view like a person. We can ask it to have different critical views on something. Here, we now have a reverse. This is, while we're here, it built a Monte Carlo simulation. Oh, and I got an error running it. Oh, and it'll fix it automatically. So I just have to click fix it, and it will just fix it. So I don't have to worry about the fact that software didn't work. It's apologizing, which I really like. Please grovel for me. OK, and it tells us about how a bunch of things we can think about the dress. My favorite example where this all comes together, you start to get really large models here that can start to do really insightful things. So I actually gave Google's Gemini here the famous or infamous iPad ad, where the industrial press ad, do you guys know what I'm talking about, that Apple had to apologize for. So I gave it the ad, and I said, what happens in this ad? And Gemini said, OK, press is crushing all these objects. You can watch videos now. Tell me, how do you think people watching this ad will feel? And it gave me some answers. If I told you it was an iPad, would that make sense? And let me make it a little larger so you can see what it said here. So what it said was that there's a disconnect between the destructive imagery of the iPad and it might create a mixed message. Like the computer was actually better at figuring out people's emotional reaction to seeing the industrial press crash stuff than Apple was, right? So the fact that you can now take these things and build interesting products out of them and get something with vision and insight is, I think, pretty fascinating. Oh, good. Let's see if it built our thing successfully or not. I'm going to click run again. Oh, and now we got a full working Monte Carlo simulation while we were waiting for other stuff, which is nice. And then let me show you one even more advanced option, and then we'll go on. I want to talk about a few more things for you. But I'm going to go to 01, which is this thinking model. And I want to show you something fun here. This is actually an academic paper I wrote with my team on AI agents in education. I'm just going to copy the entire thing. I'm going to paste it here and say, build an entire product implementing these ideas in this paper. OK, and just paste that in and hit enter. We have a whole RFP going out for this. Here's the entire paper. And you'll see the model is now thinking. There's a lot of interesting things to talk about thinking models, but and we'll see what it comes up with here. And it looks like it is starting to write out core concepts, the user journey, the framework, the technical architecture. It's starting to build out user interface details. Great, this is all very helpful. Deployment and scaling. I'll just say write all the code, just because who wants to do that anymore? And so the idea is like, okay, great. Let's see how it works out here. Too long, don't read. I love it. Okay, so it's building the foundation, building the tech stack. We'll see what it comes up with here. And now doing the front end. This is pretty nice, right? And building the elevator pitch, working through, okay, it's deploying and securing the back end. Okay, here we go. Now it's doing a whole table of contents for us. And it's starting to build everything out. Is it going to be perfect? No, but like you can look at a system that's doing this kind of work just by default, and we start to be in a really interesting place about thinking about products and what it means to develop a product. While we let this run, I'll do some other stuff. So I think a way to visualize this is actually with a kind of a challenge. So I actually, a year and a half ago, or 2 years ago almost, a year and a half ago at this point, I used Microsoft Bing, which is GPT-4, the early version, and I gave myself a challenge, all the images are AI, of course, and said, how much work can I get done in 30 minutes? So I set a timer, and just using Bing, I said, look up, I'm launching a product, right, which is something I do all the time. I've launched a lot of startups. Look up a word interactive Saturn parable. So it looks up our product. Build me an email marketing campaign. I get a full email marketing campaign. Come with a website strategy. It builds out a website strategy. Build the website. I get a hero images and a website and images, a CSS file. Create a social video campaign. I get a little social campaign, a little talking head video. So in 30 minutes, I had 92 words of emails and plans, and we ended up firing a marketing company, because why would we want to work with them when we could just do everything in the time it took to a stand-up meeting, right? But this was 18 months ago and takes, that's slow, 30 minutes. So now we can get there in 3 minutes. And let me show you this if I can. We'll see if it's running. OK. So we'll switch models on us here. And I'll open a little sidebar. And now I've built a little GPT. Where are you? Product launch tool. And I can literally just tell this little GPT, launch the Saturn parable, look it up. And it will now go ahead and look up the information, and it's going to segment the market for me and then write all the emails I need. And because I'm able to encode my expertise into the GPT, it'll just do the work for me here. So it's figuring out the target audience, and it'll keep building. We can check back on it in a second, because we don't have to watch it do the work. And even that's a little slow, because now this is how far I can get in 59 seconds. So I'm launching a product, doing a trend analysis, writing a market research report, creating a new syllabus for a class, and also a case study of Tesla, right? And I just recorded this a little while ago, just all at the same time. So the idea that we can do this kind of work, and by the way, I grade this stuff for a living. This is all solid A- work. And I will say, grade inflation is real, but an A- is pretty good at Wharton. We're an Ivy League school, not too bad. And like the fact that you can get an A- work out of a whole bunch of projects instantaneously, I think challenges the nature and meaning of how we think about work in kind of deep ways that I think we have to think about a lot more. The thing I think that we need to be grappling with is how we're changing the nature of work. How much work is going to be human only in the future? How much is going to be around the idea of sharing it? How much will be given to agents? So just a quick preview on the human only side. If you're doing things because you're not, let me just ask a question. How many of you are using AI systems? How many of you have at least 10 hours with a frontier model? Very few of you, relatively? OK, so there's probably a lot of things you think the AI can't do because it doesn't do it for you, but it actually does really well. I fall prey to this myself. I had a whole thing where I said, hey, I figured out the AI can't do a crossword puzzle. Within 2 hours of me posting this on Twitter, the professor at Princeton was like, no, it can. You're just bad at prompting. So there's lots of things the AI can do that you probably don't know. And then we're heading to a weird world about delegating to AI agents soon. And I normally demo one to you. I don't have enough time. But this is Devin, which is an AI agent. What makes Devin interesting, and all these agents interesting, is they're autonomous systems. So you give it a goal, researcher create a website for me that gives information about this product, it will go ahead and do all the work and just check back in on you for issues or mistakes. The models aren't quite powerful enough to pull this off, but this is the explicit goal of every AI company, is to build working agents in the near future. My favorite little example of this, I actually asked Devin to go onto Reddit and take requests to build websites, not knowing what happened. So an hour later, it pinged me and said, I've done all the research, I found the site to post to, but I need to fill out a CAPTCHA, and I'm not allowed to do that. Will you fill out the CAPTCHA for me? So my sole contribution was filling out a CAPTCHA. And then I went away, and it posted this ad, right? Which proposed, by the way, a $50 to $100 rate. I did not tell it to charge. It decided to charge. When I checked in 3 hours later without knowing that it was doing this, it was trying to figure out how to connect to Stripe to charge people, no joke. And it was also answering people's messages and trying to set up proposals for them. It wouldn't have gotten that far because I shut it down, but and the model wasn't good enough yet. But the idea that you have these autonomous systems that are out there setting their own goals and coming up with direction, that is the explicit goal of every one of the AI companies for the next 6 months, is to release models that can do this stuff. So expect to see these things happening in the world. The real way to use AI now, though, is to think about it as sort of a centaur or cyborg, to work with the AI. Your expertise is incredibly valuable. The AI has latent expertise, but will give you fairly generic answers. But if you're using it in an area where you're an expert, you'll get a lot of value out of it. And so when in our research, we divided between centaur and cyborg tasks. So a centaur is the idea of half person, half machine. You're kind of splitting the work, right? So I like doing the analysis. I don't like writing emails. You write the emails. I do the analysis. The more sophisticated version of this is what we call cyborg work, blended with the AI. My book, which is my third book, every time I agree to write a book, I'm like, why did I agree to write a book? Books are terrible. I hate them. But this was my best book, and I think my easiest to write, not because the AI did a lot of writing, but because the AI filled in all the gaps for me that made writing really annoying. I couldn't finish, when I got stuck at the end of a paragraph, give me 30 ways to end this sentence in radically different styles. Summarize these research papers and make sure I'm citing them properly. The AI actually works really well as a customer. If you haven't experimented with this, there's a nice couple of papers out of Harvard showing if you show the AI a product and tell it to adopt a persona and do that with enough of the AI systems and do a conjoint on that, you get actual willingness to pay fairly accurately. So I had AI readers read every chapter in different styles and give me feedback about how to improve them. This kind of centaur work is really important. It's also important because that blends together how we think about this work, because the AI is good at some things you wouldn't expect and bad at some things you wouldn't expect. If you don't use it enough, you'll fall prey to what we call the jagged frontier of AI, which means that you'd be surprised. If I ask it to write a 25-word sentence, it can't do that. But if I ask it to do instead to be able to do a sonnet, it'll do a really nice sonnet. How do I do with a system that can do a nice sonnet but can't do a 25-word sentence? That's this jagged frontier. And if you use this system enough, you won't be taken in. Otherwise, you will be. We created one more task for the BCG people, where they were actually asked to do an additional project. We purposely made it so the AI failed it. It took a lot of work to do. And when they did, they actually did worse than people not using AI because they stopped paying attention. So it's important to use these systems enough to understand what they're good or bad at. They're enhancements to your own creativity or ability in these ways. So much more I could talk about, but I want to show you one more quick thing here, which is just to end with the 4 principles I have in the book. For all of you who haven't spent your 10 hours, the number one thing I would tell you is invite AI to everything you ethically and legally can, right? Use AI systems for everything. You'll find they're good at some stuff, bad at some stuff. That's great. That's what you learn. You'll learn that it's good at some stuff that you're not as good at, or they're parts of your job. The answer to that is not to reject AI, but to think about, how do I use this to focus on the things I do really well? I guarantee whatever you're best at, you definitely beat AI at. And that's probably what you enjoy doing the most and what you're most highly paid for and what your real goal is. Think about how you're the human in the loop and focusing on what you do really well and giving out the other stuff to AI. You saw me prompting this stuff. Just chatting with it like a person gets you 90% of the way there. And most importantly, everything I'm showing you is already obsolete. These are the worst AIs you're ever going to use. The system keeps changing. We didn't get much chance to talk about it, but I know enough about what's happening in the future to think we have at least another 4 years of rapid change before there's any sign that this is going to stop. So everything I'm showing you, early days, we are at the end. What's really exciting, though, is nobody has answers. So you get to figure out how this is used in a way that helps you thrive in your career, that helps your companies thrive, that helps your customers thrive, that people you're serving thrive. And if we don't figure this out, no one's going to figure it out for us. So I hope this is an interesting challenge for you to solve and not just something that's being thrown at you. We get to shape what this is and what this means. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Ethan. What a great conversation. Earlier this morning when Todd kicked off, he talked about the cost of creating applications, creating software, going down to almost nothing. And you showed us examples of exactly how that's going to happen. But all of us here are in the business of creating software. And so tell us, like, how should we think about that, right? How do we think about what is our role and how does it look different with all of this artificial intelligence at our fingertips?
So, I mean, I tend to think that no one would have designed a product manager job the way it exists. Like, it's too many things and too much responsibility and too diffuse and too much pressure all in one place. Like, and I think about the same way with professors or other roles. Like, the role has to change a little bit. This enables us, sands off some of the rough edges, lets us do things we couldn't do before. So it will change, but in some ways, you're kind of asking me a question I hope everyone here will start trying to answer, which is, what do you do with these tools at your fingertips? Like, the things I'm showing you are not science fiction. They're all here. So the question is, what do you do, right? Now, the code isn't good enough yet to do, I'm not going to have it do a giant, application. But what does it replace that used to be hard or annoying? In our own organization, we stopped doing agile development because it made no sense anymore, because why do agile when it would just slow us down? So we ended up having an entirely different process that we developed. Like, we're in a really interesting period, but there aren't easy answers yet.
Do you think, you mentioned you want all of us to try it and that'll help evolve what it can truly take off our plates. Do you think it's different for each individual? You mentioned, each of us like different parts of our jobs. Product managers are a job that is different day to day, and so use it for the things maybe we're not as good at. Do you think it's going to start to have some sort of consistency in how we all use it, or do you think it's very dependent on our own strengths?
So, I mean, the elephant in the room, or giant killer robot in the room, is the question of how good these things get, right? So right now, they're good, but they're not as good as you. For you to be here in this room, you're better than it in many tasks, right? And it will help you accomplish your goals, but it might help you with ideation or other things that fill in gaps for you. The long-term question is how good these systems get, right? I would show O1, this model that just came out, did a pretty good job of outlining an entire product, right? I can give it an RFP and say, just start building the RFP, right? Like that's an interesting place to be where we're sort of in the early days of. So I think part of the other reason to start using this is to get a sense of where that trend line is heading.
Yeah. So if you had a kid and they were getting ready to go off to college or graduating and thinking about their career choices, do you think from a negative impact you would steer them away or towards engineering or product management?
So I think it's a hard question, right? I've got a kid who
I didn't tell him I was going to ask that.
I've got a kid who's a high school senior and a sophomore, so we're doing this. The senior wants to actually be a doctor, right? A field that overlaps with AI. I personally think whatever you best and have passion in is where you're going to have the most advantage over AI anyway. Yeah. I think the other thing is, so when you think about jobs, the way academics think about jobs and economists think about jobs is jobs aren't like a thing. A job is a bundle of tasks. They're a set of stuff that you do. So when technological change happens, it changes the tasks in your bundle, right? I may give up grading as a thing that I do, right? And maybe that's okay, maybe that isn't. If the things in the bundle that attract you most are going to be most affected by AI, I'd be more worried. Most product managers I talk to, it's not like the writing the emails to customers that the AI is really good at. They're like, this is what I love, right? There's an intellectual challenge, and the AI can actually be helpful for that. So I think it depends on where in the bundle you kind of fit, and our bundles will be changing. Your jobs are going to change. Like, I can guarantee that with certainty. That doesn't mean they go away. That doesn't mean they need less of you, but that does mean it changes. And I think that the tools you guys provide are part of the story about how this all changes.
One of the things you and I talked about when I first met you was this concept of simulating users in AI and that impact on building great product. Tell me your thoughts on that.
So we have found that when we show product development screens to actual users versus the AI, we get much better feedback from the AI than users in most cases, because we can actually say, please just tell us the answer of what you think, give us 5 negatives, be super critical. Now imagine you're a naive user, give us so to the extent that you're doing your sort of screens of like, is this good enough to pass a screen, we now have cheap user testing. Now, is that as good as sending something out to the market and seeing what the actual results are? No, like you still need that point of getting real data. We still need to do all of the fast test and learn. But there is something pretty miraculous about getting through the early stages and doing some of that simulated testing early on. And so the research from my colleagues at Harvard find it's pretty good, right? It works pretty well as a user testing ground, and you can get reasonably good results from doing that way.
At Pendo, we are passionate that when you think about understanding how your users interact with your software and getting the whole 360-degree view of your user, that you have to understand how they feel, how they act, what do they click on, what do they not click on, right? And even be able to watch through replays, recordings, et cetera. When you think about AI, do you think it's one of those three categories where it can help you get the best insight?
So I think it's more like almost a second opinion than it is a primary thing. I would not like, when you have access to good user research, and I'm not just saying that because you got me here. When you have access to good user research, like that will beat simulated stuff because the real world's messy, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, having cheap second opinions to avoid that first set of iterations, right? Having something saying, I'm seeing this interesting pattern, let's talk through it together.
Yeah.
Like there's some real power in those kind of approaches. So I don't know where it fits in any one particular use case, but you got extra, like you have intelligence on demand. We've never had that before. Like you've always had to hire extra people to do that. So I would actually be showing it some of the results of your tools and saying, how do I put this puzzle together? What's happening here? Let's talk through some options. And you can really get far with that.
When you think about a second opinion, or could it also be a tool that we utilize before we go to market, like when we're still with design partners or even pre-design partners, to make sure it's good enough to not waste their time?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the things I do, and I didn't get a chance to show you this, I was doing that. I will actually, you can actually say, okay, I'll take this shoe design or whatever it is, and now simulate being a customer and ask me, and give me feedback on it. And then change the design based on that. I'll do that a lot with the Claude app I showed you, right? We'll have it put together a thing, and I'll say, now interview me about it, right? And it'll interview me. I'm like, I wish it was like, the buttons are too hard to understand, and it will change the buttons for you, right? So doing that initial iteration, the really expensive sort of early thinking, like you can get through that remarkably quickly. Like I teach entrepreneurship, it completely short-circuited how products work. It'll simulate customer interviews, is it as good as a real customer interview? No, but on the other hand, you can get a lot of that first pass of the first 3 customers like, oh, I didn't even think people think that way from this system.
Yeah, that's incredible. Kind of mind-blowing. So one of the other maybe negative impacts that Todd mentioned earlier when he talked about the idea of development costs going down so significantly and so rapidly is just how that will just create more apps and more apps and more apps. And we all have more applications at our disposal, whether it's at work or in our personal lives, than we can possibly take advantage of. So how do you think about that and the impact? How do we figure out which one to choose? I mean, just in your 30 minutes up here, you showed us multiple tools doing sort of similar things.
So I think in general, you want to start with a foundation model and just work with it, right? They're remarkably, and there's a kind of high-end debate going on online. I was weighing in a few other computer scientists. No one's quite sure why, but all the models are kind of similar. If they're the same size, they kind of have similar personalities, similar approaches. So I would be using one of those as your companion to work with. Generally, I would say in your space, you should either probably be using GPT-4. If you haven't, by the way, how many of you used advanced voice mode so far? Any of you? A few of you? So this is the really kind of miraculous thing. Like, you could just talk to this thing, right? So GPT-4, I'll just do this really quick here. We'll talk to her. We'll see if we get a connection or not. That's the real question. All right, well, we'll see if internet speed. Hey, are you there?
Loud and clear.
Okay, so I'm in front of a whole giant audience of people, all their product managers. Say something to impress them.
Hello, amazing product managers. Just remember, every great product is a story unfolding.
Actually, can you do it like a vampire?
Of course. Clear throat. Good evening, product managers. Remember, every great product is like a tale of the night.
Okay, thank you. Maybe a pirate.
Army hearties,
Okay.
listen close. Every grand...
So the point is, like, when you start to work with these systems, like people, you end up in really interesting places.
I love it. Well, just incredible, and we are so lucky to have you here today at Pendomonium and your incredible depth and breadth of knowledge as it relates to AI. But most importantly, how to apply it to what we all do as product managers. I know it's something you spend a lot of time thinking about, and we're just so happy you were able to share it with us today.
Amazing. And by the way, please keep it. So Wharton, we have, nonprofit university. We have something called the Generative AI Labs, and we're actually launching an effort to think about exactly this issue, which is product management. And we've just got funding for it too. Everything we're going to do is open source. And so if you have there'll be some kind of calls to get participation from people. But we're trying to figure out how do you augment product management to make it work better? How do we make the AI help people and help people thrive rather than take away jobs? And that's actually the area we're starting in. So I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to learn more from all of you as the time goes on. And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ethan.